Hi, this is Bobby G, and this is Bobby G's Big Stone ATX, an inspirational podcast about love and reoccurring patterns in our lives. As a young boy, I have a memory of holding the biggest stone I could manage high over my head when I was about 5 years old, and I dropped it into the water, and it went splash and kerplunk, and ripples shot out from that stone. And 5 years later, another stone was dropped, not in the pond this time, it was dropped in my life. And it was my fifth grade teacher, Mrs. Drabick. And I was just a shy, reserved little kid. I didn't want to be called upon, just hadn't found success in school. And Mrs. Drabick came into my life, and through her love and encouragement, she coaxed me out of my shell, and she changed the trajectory of my life. Well, flash forward 30 years, and I had a spiritual teacher by the name of Keith Miller who came into my life. And he asked about the first person who came into my life who showed me love and encouragement, and like a lightning bolt, Mrs. Drabick's name popped into my head. And he encouraged me and others in the group to write thank you notes to that special person. And I did write a thank you note. And a couple weeks go by and I don't hear anything, and that shy little kid, that little insecure kid crept back into my head, wondering if I had spelled something wrong or what I had done wrong with the letter. And a week later, it was complete opposite. Mrs. Drabick wrote me back and she said, "Dear Bobby, thank you, thank you. I can't tell you what that letter means to me. I now keep it under the glass that covers my desk, and I'm a principal now, and I just want to thank you so much." So Bobby G's Big Stone ATX is all about reaching out to people in the community of Austin and asking them about the big stone moment in their lives, and talk about the love that they pour into what they do, and how that enriches the fabric of Austin. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest I'm so happy to have today, AlanGraham. AlanGraham from Mobile Loaves and Fishes and Communities First. And he's just a really special guest. And so, Alan, good morning.
Yeah, great to be here. Good morning. Yeah, awesome.
Alan, would you tell us about the big stones that have been dropped in your life, and how they've affected you and those around you?
Well, obviously the biggest stone in my life, and you said not immediate family, but I'm not going to be able to do it without immediate family.
Okay.
So I'm going to violate your first rule of Bobby G. So it had to be my mom. And my mom was profoundly mentally ill. And the only memory that I have of my mother and father together up underneath the same roof was when I was about 4 years old, and my mom was standing on the bed with a knife in her hands, threatening my dad. And the next thing I know, my mom's in the hospital. And during that year of essentially incarceration, my father filed divorce against my mom and unleashed the Armageddon of a custody battle for me and my three brothers. And but my mom had something really going for her that many of our friends on the streets don't have, and that was a mom and dad that really loved her, cared for her, and they were resourced. And they had the ability to, one, get her into the finest mental health care facility in the world, Menninger's in Topeka, Kansas. And secondly, battle my father to ensure that my mother would never lose her maternal rights to her boys. And my mom gets out and regains custody of us. And at some point in time, she has this conversion into Roman Catholicism, and starts dragging me and my brothers to church, and then all the things, church, First Communion, confirmation, reconciliation, all these things. And that would have to be probably one of the first big ripples in my life. Because even though I abandoned all that when I was a pretty young teenager and into my mid-20s, that seed was planted by her. And over the course of her life, she suffered many mental health breakdowns and institutionalizations. And by the time I was 18 years old, I became her custodial caretaker, which was not easy. So that would be number one. But you talked about a teacher, and I'm going to have to go to 8th grade. I had to repeat 8th grade. I hated school, by the way, still do. Love learning, but I'm not a sit in the classroom kind of guy. But I had to repeat 8th grade because in my previous stint, I was arrested for stealing cars when I was 14 years old on Easter Sunday, 1970, March 29th. I had 2 tickets, by the way, to see Led Zeppelin on their Led Zeppelin 2 tour. Missed out on that. Anyway, that just kind of blew up. My mom was having a mental health breakdown, and then finally my dad came and rescued me out of that deal. So now I'm in Alvin, Texas, go from Houston, Texas, urban area, to a rural deal. And you want to talk about
and that's where your dad lived, in Alvin, Texas?
Well, he lived in Houston, but then that summer we moved to Alvin.
Okay.
And so now I'm entering the 8th grade in a rural community, a farming, ranching community, going from Houston, Texas, fish out of the water, the whole deal. And it was, and I'm a year older than everybody in there, and at that time in your life, a year was pretty huge. But I was in speech. I don't know whether I took the class or whether it was just something I had to take. And Virginia Kernigan was my teacher. She's no longer alive. And she encouraged me to get into and compete in extemporaneous speaking, which I find very interesting. But it turns out that I'm a pretty accomplished extemporaneous speaker, and it flows from that. And so the ripples of her encouragement in that, and we would compete, and I never won, which I find funny because I have friends that were even in my class that, we would compete together and they would win, and here I am, kind of a nationally known speaker that people will pay money to hear, and but I never won a stupid trophy in 8th grade. But it had a very positive impact on who I am.
That's great. Yeah, our kids went to Bridgepoint Elementary School, and they would have the 6th graders up on the stage, and then they'd have K through 5 in that order going back. And the 6th graders would get out there and talk, and all the parents were around, and all the teachers were around every morning. And I just thought that was such an amazing thing that how old are you in 6th grade? You're, 10 years old, 10, 11 years old, and you're talking in front of 700 people in the morning. And I thought that was so cool. I think that's great that your teacher got you involved in speaking.
Well, I watched my daughter, who I think was in 6th grade over at Eames Elementary, and that was during the Just Say No campaigns and stuff like that. And they'd have a competition for speaking, and the winner got a Just Say No jacket, and all the parents are in there and they're watching their kids, and these kids are getting up there and they're doing these deals, and it's pretty kiddish. And my daughter gets up and blows it out of the park, and I look at my wife, Tricia, and I go, she's got that jacket. There's no doubt in my mind. She did. She won that jacket. I mean, it was so good. And I'm going, well, maybe that chip off the old block in terms of being able to speak in public. Because it's not easy for a lot of people to go and speak in public, as you articulated. Not easy to stand up and do that.
I like it. I personally like to have the microphone.
Oh,
I don't know if I do the best job, but I enjoy getting.
Yeah, I got
there.
no problem, no nervousness, no nothing.
And
Just
George, our youngest, is just I don't know where he gets it from. Must maybe some me, Ellen. But he feels comfortable right up there,
yeah, great.
jumping in, which is I think such a great trait. Well, those are some great. I mean, I know a bit about your story, and it's the Catholic Church at a young age, and your mom planting that seed. I think that's real interesting, and I know you'll tell us more about that. And anyway, let me step back and let you go.
Well, to get to the place that Mobile Loaves and Fishes is at
And
today,
how old is Mobile Loaves and Fishes right now?
26 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and there have been so many incredible stones dropped in that water and the ripples from all the different people that God has brought into our lives in order to even remotely make this happen.
Would you tell us how it all got started, please?
Well, in 1996, Trish and I get married in 1984. And when we met, which was in late 80, very early 81, it became pretty clear to me that if there was ever going to be a marriage, it was always going to be in the church. That was going to be her deal. So I faked it until I made it. And, we got married in the church in 1984, and, we weren't that spiritual. And then baby started coming in 1987, the second one in 1988. And at some point in time, and both of us are kind of workaholic type of people. And, I would normally work a 7-day week, take it easy on Sunday, but get up and go into the office and get ready for the upcoming week. And one Sunday morning, door opens up, and I look up, and there's Tricia going out the door with a couple of kids going to Mass. And it looked to me like the train was leaving the station. And so I said, I better hook my car up to that train. Yeah. Because I didn't want to be in the position that my father was in, who ultimately left us. Didn't abandon us, but, moved away and got another wife and, that whole deal. And it created all of that. And so I started going back to church. And if I was going to do this, I wanted to learn as much as I could about the church. And I fell in love with the church. I fell in love with the heresies. I fell in love with the schisms. I fell in love with the Reformation. I fell in love with what I perceive as the unbelievable train wreck that the Christian church is. Mm-hmm. I love it. It's a novel of all novels that 2,000 years later, it still exists. Mm-hmm. And it's fragmented, but the corpus of that deal, the main piece, still exists. Then so I had this intellectual relationship with Christ. There were just certain things that I was going to believe. And then in 1996, I got invited to go to a retreat at St. John Newman Catholic Church, just up the street from where we are here. And had I known, brother, that men were going to hold hands and God forbid, hug it out, that bromance, hug it out, I would have never gone to that deal. That was not my spirituality at all. And I end up in this deal. It's about 70, 80 guys in this, and right off the bat is hand holding and bromance hugging it out. And I spent the first 2 hours going, how can I get out of here? This is not my deal. And then somebody would get up and give a testimony, and they would vomit out the most putrid, sinful stuff that you could imagine. I wanted to go up to him and go, hey, maybe you ought to keep that in the far back recesses of your skeleton closet. We don't necessarily need to hear this. But then they would connect it to forgiveness, reconciliation, healing, and redemption. And at some point in time, I felt like I was looking at a mirror. That's me. You know, I'm that guy. I'm that putrid, sinful, pathetic, wretched of a human being. Not a great father. And, you know, a lot of things. Not a great husband. Not a, you know. And by the end of this 30-hour retreat, I was just blown back. And whatever was intellectually in my head about my relationship with Christ dropped a floor right into the depths of the cave of my heart. And man, that was a game changer right there. What do you want me to do, God? Yeah.
And so you asked yourself that question, what do you want me to do?
I asked him that. What do you want me to do, dude?
Uh-huh.
You know? Now, what I felt like I was asking is, you want me to cook barbecue on Sundays at church for people, or do you want me to be a liturgist or a, you know, sacristan, or, you know, become a member of the Knights of Columbus or something? I wasn't asking to get out of my career and jump into ministry full time, but he had a different plan. So that had a giant impact. I tell everybody on the face of the planet that without that retreat, Mobile Loaves and Fishes would not exist, period. Then, a couple of years later, 1998, about the springtime of 98, Tricia and I were having coffee with a girlfriend of ours at church. And this girlfriend was telling us about a ministry in Corpus Christi, Texas, where on cold winter nights, multiple churches, multiple denominations would come together and pool their resources to take out to the men and women that lived on the streets of Corpus. And at that moment, out of my subconscious mind, came the image of this catering truck that everybody knows, that knows of Mobile Loaves, of the catering truck. And, you know, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been a dreamer all my life. I've, you know, had some successes and plenty of failures in that deal, and was gun shy about going to Tricia and going, I've got this idea, because she'd been up and down the roller coaster of my ideas. And but finally, about a week or two into this deal, I couldn't get this thing out of my mind. I said, hey, sweetie, I've got this idea. And she just looks at me and goes, oh my God, here we go again. Because she knows that when I get these things, that I get on point and I can't get off, you know. But this one turned out to work so far. So, yeah.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when the kids were in scouting, we were over there making sandwiches and folding socks and driving the truck around, and
yeah.
really beautiful.
Yeah. So it's had, you know, I mean, there've been a lot of ripple impacts, and I don't even know them all. Don't even remotely know.
I'm sure
of the impact.
The people that were fed, and the children that were fed, and
the
clean socks that got put on people, and
yeah, the kids that got enamored with it and then drugged their parents into the ministry. You know, it's
people who worked there, not only the people who received, but everyone received.
Right? No, everyone. Yeah. And then just to build the thing, and you know, you begin to look at all these little pebbles, really, that were thrown into the water. It's actually the quiet of the pebble. You know, there are big stones in our lives, but for the most part, there are these little pebbles that are out there, and then those ripples. And I'm not sure that the ripples of a giant stone cascade any further than the ripples of a tiny stone. May be the same. That'd be an interesting physics experiment.
I like it.
But all these little bitty stones have come into our life over 26 years. Last year, the 25th anniversary, and September 13th, 1998 was the first night that me and my buddies went out in the back of a green minivan to serve the homeless, to see whether this truck idea, whether 5 white guys from Westlake Hills, honestly, could do this deal. And how do I give thanksgiving to God for all that was brought in to bring us to the place that we were at the 25th anniversary. So the only thing that I could think of was go walk the Camino de Santiago and the 500-mile.
Did you walk the whole 500 miles?
It took me, there was a group of us that began on September 13th.
Did you begin in France or did you begin in Spain?
No, in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, France.
Okay.
And
I wanted to do this.
up over the Pyrenees. And 6 of us started, about 25 people went totally. 6 of us started at Saint Jean. A couple of hundred, week and a half or so into this deal, I hurt my left knee. My right knee was my problem, but my left knee. And I just couldn't work this thing out. I did everything I could to work it out. And so, and I was on and off the trail trying to deal with the knee, and then went back this September to finish the 300 miles that I didn't. So I've walked every foot of that 500 miles. And 2 of my kids went with me last year, and they did the whole 500, and then they came back with me to do the 300. And so that was great.
Do you take a backpack with your clothing? Is that how you do it?
Yeah. There's multiple ways that you can skin this cat.
So you just pack that on your flight over, and that's what you use.
Well, when we went over
I just
last
have these
year,
visions of me dragging a wheeling bag across the mountains, and that's not the way you do it.
you're not going to do that. Yeah, that will not
Okay.
work. Yeah.
Maybe you want to do it again. I need to do it with a pro.
Well, I'm going to do the Portuguese version. We'll do it in 26. It's all planned. It's being planned right now. Just kind of got addicted to this thing, and it's also a great time to, as we age, what can you do that's going to build extraordinarily meaningful memories for your children?
Yeah.
And being on the Camino, and sleeping with them. These are adult.
Yeah.
And waking up and walking 12, 15, 18 miles with them.
And just talking.
Sometimes you're doing the crappy family deal, man. Yeah. Like I'm a get up early in the morning and get going guy. I have a son, my oldest, that's not quite that way. And he's on his time, and so, and then you get your kids together, and they all grew up with each other. They all grew up throwing flash grenades at each other, and that doesn't end in adulthood. And
we've had all our kids here for Thanksgiving and a baby christening, and it's interesting.
Well, in 2019, my youngest son, Keaton, and George and Keaton would have been
Same age.
Similar, but Keaton's 30, 31, born in 93.
Okay.
And when was George?
George was born in 2001.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so quite a bit younger.
Yeah.
Okay. And got married in Paris, and we all flew over there, and just sold the house in Westlake, and so we had a little bit of money, and so we took the whole family and did this 2-week deal, and we're on the airplane about to land back in Austin, and Trish and I both sit in aisle seats, and I leaned across the aisle and said, "Hey, sweetie, we will never, ever effing do this again." Not doing it, man. I'm not paying money to do this, and I'm done. And I can travel with one of them or a couple of them at a time, but you put the whole cocktail together, and it just, for a long period of time, it just doesn't mix that well. So that's how it is. They all love each other, but somebody will say something, or some memory will come back up. Yeah, do you remember?
They know how to push the buttons.
They know how to push those buttons and not release. Yeah.
Oh my. Tell us now the genesis of Communities First.
Well, Community First, you're going out on the truck, and you're building relationships with men and women that are out there, and my stereotypes are shifting. And anybody that goes out on that truck, you're encountering good people, broken and visibly broken. And it's the invisibly broken meeting the visibly broken that's kind of interesting.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
The invisibly broken.
Yeah.
Meeting the visibly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, you live like this. You got the car thing going out there. You wake up in the morning, you shower, put your makeup clothes on, trim your beard, do all that. You look great, But up underneath is the same train wreck of humanity that exists just about everywhere. I don't care who you are. And you look at your family. I give these talks all the time, and I'm always asking the audience that I know in each of your families out there that you have a drug addict, an alcoholic, or somebody battling a behavioral health issue. But I've never, ever been challenged. It's 100%. Statistically zero that you don't have that in your family. And so, but we pretend that we don't. Many people are very good at pretending that they don't, or they seem to be ashamed that these kinds of things. God, one of my best friends, daughter's 24, 25 maybe right now, has been in rehab 4 or 5 times, heroin addict. Grew up with all the money in the world and all the resources and all the everything, So all of us are impacted by this deal. So you're building relationships with people. And then in 2003, I led about 15 people out on a street retreat. And we were dropped off in downtown Austin, and we spent 72 hours out on the streets. And, it was like a sleepover with men and women that were homeless. That was just unbelievably powerful. And I've done a ton of those, still do them. And I began to realize there was a common denominator amongst everybody, and that was a profound, catastrophic loss of family. And when I say catastrophic loss, I'm talking about daddies that were molesting their little girls when they were little, and mom and dads giving their children heroin to put them asleep so that they could party, and physical. Not uncommon at all.
Wow.
It's a daily deal. Okay, in the United States, everywhere. We are a perverted species, man, and humans will do just about anything. And I realized what people needed more than anything was family, and a forged family. And so I got this idea. A buddy of mine, one of the original founders with me at Mobile Loaves and Fishes, Bruce Agnes, a Westlake guy, was looking at buying a ranch outside of Fredericksburg. Said, "You want to go look at it?" This is 2004, and I said, "Yeah, let's go." And we get there, and there's a deer camp on the property with an RV. And I went and looked at that RV, and I said, I could live in something like this. How much would this cost? He goes, $3,000 to $5,000 all day long. I go, get out of here. $5,000, we get somebody up off the streets. He goes, yeah. So we went and bought one and lifted a guy up in March of 2005. First person we ever did. Put him into a privately owned RV park, and that guy still lives with us. Nearly 20 years, almost 20 years, been with us. And being the serial real estate entrepreneur that I am, I started dreaming about building an RV park. That's how this whole thing started. Let's go build an RV park. It's an inexpensive way to get people up out of this misery that they're living in on the streets. And man, here we are, having created really a movement that's. We have 46 replicators around the United States right now.
Is that right?
Yeah. So something's going on. And people are recognizing that you just can't take somebody and stuff them into some apartment complex in North Austin somewhere, and they're going to be happy. It's not going to work.
So how many acres do you have in East Austin?
Well, we started with 27 acres, and then I added 24 for 51 acres total.
Okay.
Then we acquired 51 acres across the street. And then about 8 miles from that location, we have another 76 acres over off of Burleson Road. And so the 51 acres across the street and the 76 acres are currently under construction.
Okay.
And we'll add about another 1,400 homes.
And how many homes are in the original couple of
About 550.
Okay, so it'll be about 2,000 total.
Yeah.
And when are the B and C going to be completed?
Well,
2 years.
phase 1 and 2 are complete. Phase 3, and then phase 4 over on Burleson Road. Phase 3 will start moving people in this summer. And then about 6 months later, after that, we'll start moving people into the Burleson Road.
And where are you getting the funds to not only purchase the property, but construct the tiny homes and so on and so forth?
Yeah, primarily and historically, our fundraising has all been private philanthropy.
Okay.
Although we did get a $36 million blessing from Travis County from some of the American Rescue Funds.
Okay.
The printed money that was printed.
Dropped from the sky.
Yeah, dropped from the sky, yeah.
And then once they're all set up, is there power provided to all the different homes?
Mm-hmm.
There's running water provided to all the homes?
No. About half the homes will be plumbed.
Okay.
And half of them will not be.
And then they go to a main, like
a common, laundry, restroom, shower,
okay.
And outdoor kitchens that are unbelievable, frankly.
And how do you select the people that go in there? How is it? Tell me about the process.
Well, they're basically referred to us through the system. There's a number of people number of agencies that operate in Austin that come and
work with you.
Yeah, work with us, and that do their things, that are constantly case managing people that are homeless, and then they'll get referred into to us, and that opens up a process that can be quite long.
Do people typically, like out of 100 people, at the end of 5 years, are those hundreds still there, or do some of them go off on their own and it's just a stopping point, or is there any?
There's no
They're welcome to stay there forever.
forever, and we'll even cremate you and bury you there if you give us the rights, or your family gives us the right to do that.
Okay.
The average age is 57 years old. The average age of death is 59.
Oh wow.
So
Those early years are tough on them.
very difficult. Yeah. Yeah. No health care. Unbelievable levels of trauma, mental health, physical health, addictions. Drug and alcohol use is a pretty ginormous factor.
Well, I'd imagine you'd want to escape, right? I mean, if you're just
Look, I've got no indictment. I mean, as the American culture consumes more dope, and when I say dope, I'm talking about what you get at your drug dealer at HEB.
Yeah.
Go.
Well, you can numb yourself through shopping on Amazon too, right?
Well, go to the
pain.
Starbucks over by the HEB and just sit out at the table and watch who's going in the Twin Liquors right next door, and watch what they're coming out with. It's all of us,
Well, it was like you were saying earlier. What was your word? The people who are outward and the people who are inward.
Well, the invisible, that line, yeah.
We're all there's a lot of people trying to escape.
No, well, we got our half a gallon of vodka in a brown paper sack coming out of Twin Liquors, hopping into our Mercedes.
Yeah.
It looks good,
Yeah.
but the same collateral damage is occurring. You're going to die early if that's your gig.
That's a fact.
And probably bring a lot of misery into your sphere.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful story about going to the retreat and the mobile loaves and fishes, and then where that all and to where it is today.
Yeah.
Not only mobile loaves and fishes, but communities first. And
yeah. But hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people have their fingerprints on that God has brought in.
Yeah.
To that deal.
Not only in our community, but you said 46.
Yep. All of that,
Similar projects around the country.
Yep. Yeah, you just don't know. We wrote a book back in 2017, and periodically people will come up to you and go, "I read that book, man. It changed my life." And wow, okay.
I need to get a copy of that book.
Yeah, Welcome Homeless. So it's on Amazon.
That's where I'll be going.
It's cheaper on Amazon. You can go to our website and buy it at our deal, but it costs you a lot more money. So, yeah.
Oh wow, that is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So the ripples, I could probably go all day long with talking about the different people that have come into my life. The four original founders, and the formerly homeless guy that used to work as a custodian at our church that was there, while the 5 white guys were business planning mobile loaves and fishes. It took a chronically homeless, illiterate, former heroin junkie, alcoholic guy.
What was his name?
Houston Flake.
Houston Flake.
Yeah.
Tell us about him.
It was interesting because after I did that chirp experience in '96,
The chirp experience was the
Christ, the retreat deal.
The retreat. Okay.
Yeah, called Chirp. Christ Renews His Parish.
Okay.
I jumped on subsequent teams to lead them on their journey.
Okay.
And And he was a recipient of one of those teams. And at the end of this 30-hour journey, you get this bag of letters, like the letter you wrote to your teacher. But there's maybe 100 letters in there. Family members have written, friends, people you don't even know have written these notes and letters to you, and you're reading this, and you and all your buddies that were in the retreat, and that box of tissue is going down fast. You're bawling your brains out. Well, so it's time for what we called the help letters, HELP, and somebody comes up. I'm the spiritual director, and one of the original founders of Mobile Loaves was the lay director, Jack Selman. And they come up and they go, Houston can't read. What do we do? And Mobile Loaves hadn't even been thought of at this point. And another guy that was one of the original founders was Mark White. Mark White was a therapist, licensed therapist, and his clientele were primarily Westlake youth. And we go, well, get Mark. He can figure this out. So Mark sat down and read these letters that were all given to Houston, and there were people from prison writing him. There were young people on the streets that looked at him like a father. Powerful letters of a, formerly chronically homeless. The guy worked as a janitorial custodial person at St. John Newman, which is arguably maybe the wealthiest parish, monetarily the wealthiest parish in Austin, and these were mind-blowing. So fast forward to the Mobile Loaves and Fishes days, and we're putting this business plan together, and nobody knows anything about homelessness. We're just going to go out and with this truck thing and feed people. And finally somebody popped up and said, maybe we ought to invite Houston to join us. And so one day I snag him, and we come downtown, and we're meeting at my buddy's law firm in his conference room that overlooks the Capitol. And we have deli lunches being catered in, an environment that we're all totally accustomed to. But the only law office that Houston had ever been in would be the basement of some dingy building talking to a pro bono criminal lawyer that's going to half-ass try to get him out of the trouble that he's in and keep him out of prison or keep his time in prison to a minimum. And we're in there and we're brainstorming, and I go, one of the things that I think ought to be on this truck are phone cards. This is pre-massive cell phone days, and, phone cards so people could reconnect. And Houston, and he grew up in Minnesota, and so he had somewhat of an accent, and then he also had the accent of somebody that was poorly educated and illiterate. Goes, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Said, nobody wants to hear from them. And wow, that's kind of a revelation. They've burned so many bridges that nobody wants to hear from them. What do they want? He goes, socks. And I go, that sounds like the dumbest idea on the planet. But I bet you we've given away 20 million pairs of socks on that truck and not one phone card. And so after one of these meetings in the conference room, he goes, come on, Alan, I want to take you to my conference room. So we drive into South Austin. We park. We walk up this trail, and there's a woman sitting in a lawn chair in the middle of a path, smoking a cigarette and drinking a beer about 1 o'clock, in the afternoon. And the closer we got to that deal, the uglier that deal got. And I started building up a little anxiety in myself. And I go, I'm going to be introduced to her, and I'm going to have to touch her, like a handshake or something like that. And so I'm wondering what kind of cooties are all over that deal. And he goes up, she gets up out of the chair, and he wraps her up in a big old bear hug, brings her in tight, and then as they're releasing, he plants a little filial kiss right on their lips. The kind of kiss that you would get from close friends, just a beautiful friendship. And here I am, the savior of the world, mentality, ego, we're going to build this ministry. And I'm standing next to the guy that probably more mirrored Jesus Christ than any other human in my life. And he was a crack addict, heroin junkie, alcoholic, incarcerated, all the things, doing the thing that I only aspired to do. But in reality, he was metaphorically holding my hands and taking me through this spiritual wall that we all build, And so that's Houston. And Houston, he had a crappy little single room, little apartment thing that folks got him into, and they'd buy him a new mattress for the deal. Then the mattress was gone because somebody else needed it more than him. They'd buy an air conditioner and put it into his bedroom, and the air conditioning would be gone because somebody else needed it more than he did. Well, in 2001, he gets bladder cancer, and he passes away in 2002. And so on the original truck number 1, which sits in the circle of phase 1 at Mobile Loaves, it's at the entrance. We had emblazoned on the truck in honor of Houston Flake. And his dying wish, speaking of ripples here, bro, his dying wish was to go into one of the housing projects and take a bunch of popsicles to give away to the kids in the deal. But he never regained his health. And so we took an ice chest full of popsicles and went to Seton, where he was at the time, and wheeled him downstairs. He's got all the shit, hooked up to him. And we're sitting outside the doors of Seton, handing out popsicles to everybody that was coming in and out. And we presented the truck in honor of Houston Flake. And he looked at me and said, nobody's ever honored me in my life. He was born in 55, same year I was. And shit, I couldn't count. I couldn't tell you how many times I've been honored. And here I am with a human being that's had such a profound impact on so many lives. And he had never been honored. And simultaneous to that, we had a plaque made, but the plaque hadn't come in. And finally the plaque comes in. He moves out of Seton over to Christopher House. And the average stay at Christopher House is 2.5 days, man. That's it. You're at the end of that deal. And so this plaque is sitting on the seat of my car. And every day I'm getting in my car and I'm looking at that plaque and I'm going, I better get that freaking plaque over to Houston. Otherwise, he's going to die, and I'm going to be stuck with this plaque and the guilt. And finally, on a Friday, I snagged my oldest son, Decker, and we went to Christopher House. And I go into his room, and he's not there. And do you know where he may be out on the patio smoking? I go outside, he's not on the patio. Well, sometimes he goes for a walk, So I walk out of the building through the parking lot, and I hear, Alan, Alan. And there's Houston sitting in a car with his daughter smoking a doobie. It was great, man. Yeah, he's going out, man, in all the glory, and got him the plaque. That was on a Friday. He dies on a Tuesday. So anyway, big impact. Think about him, all the time. So,
Oh my God.
but this is how God, and then boom, you're out. Boom, you're in. A few years later, boom, you're out. Brings these people in, these ripples, end up washing over you periodically, and then they go, and that's life,
Oh God. That's
Yeah, pretty awesome. We
awesome.
He was buried in the Pauper Cemetery, and then that was 2002. That's where the indigent go, the despised and outcast go to be lost and forgotten, and death in the community is a huge thing. I mean, Tricia and I, no doubt, want to die in that village, because when we discover that body, there will be 100 people standing outside that house until that body is removed. And that'll happen 25 to 30 times this year. Yeah. It just comes. So it took us about 3 years, but we exhumed his body out of the Pauper Cemetery and to cremate him and put him front and center in one of our columbariums, in the memorial garden at the village, which is a beautiful place and space, which is where Tricia and I want to be when that time comes. And but when we pulled him out of the ground, he was in a black plastic garbage bag. I mean, it wasn't a garbage bag, but it was a black plastic industrial, made for this kind of deal. And it's not like I'm blaming the system for that, but we have allowed this to happen as a culture.
Wow. Well, you've poured so much love into all that you do, and I just feel honored to be here and hear the story. Thank you.
Great, awesome. Yeah, awesome.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you, and Alan, have a day as special as you are to me and to all of Austin. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.